Hi, and welcome to the Payfederate webinar. I'm Boyd Davis, the CEO and co-founder of Payfederate, a software platform for compensation management.
And I'm Sam Reeve. I'm a compensation practitioner. I'm the CEO and founder of CompTeam, a boutique compensation consultancy. And I'm happy to be here with you today.
This is part one of a three-part series where Sam and I are going to chat about some of the challenges and opportunities facing compensation professionals today. And we're going to get Sam's kind of input and insight based on working with many customers over many years and seeing the latest trends. And as he shares what he thinks some of the challenges are, I'll dive in and maybe show a little bit about how the Payfederate platform can help. And we're going to start with something I think is foundational for a compensation professional, and that is confidence in compensation. You know, compensation professionals get it from all sides. The employees feel like they're not paid enough. The hiring managers are saying, hey, we're not paying enough. But then the executive team is saying, hey, our payroll costs are growing and we need to rein those in. And everybody's a competent compensation expert because everybody gets paid in an organization. So what do you see happening with the confidence level in organizations' compensation? And you know, what do you think people could do to try to get more confidence in it?
Right. Well, that's a great question, Boyd. I mean, it's undeniable that confidence or trust in how a person's paid is super important to ensure that you increase motivation. Because when a person is paid fairly, we know that we're able to retain them for longer periods of time. We're able to get higher levels of performance and productivity, and just that trust in the way that you're paid allows you to focus on your work and not worry about those other things, right? So that's important. Now, it's difficult for compensation practitioners to establish this amount of trust, mainly because there's so much change in the marketplace. I mean, right now, I mean that we just come off of a year of high inflation, and so the price levels of pay is changing, increased minimum wage, creating compression in the organization. The job market is changing, increased regulation. All of this increases the complexity that we have to explain and educate our people. So it's quite a difficult process.
Interesting, yeah, and you know, we've had for years, various places where people can find out what they think other people are getting paid. It's probably a positive thing in some respects now, with more pay transparency and maybe more accurate sources. So we always know some of the self-reported sites and everything can warp a view of compensation, and maybe now with more transparency out there, people will be able to not get swayed by the outliers that make them think that somebody else is getting way more.
Yeah, let's hope. I mean, there's still a lot of variance in the marketplace. I mean, with pay transparency regulation, you see these super wide ranges. Sometimes they're more targeted, where people are just showing the bottom half of the range that's relevant to the particular hire. So it really depends. There's a lot of data in the marketplace, and that's part of the problem, is that we need tools and practices and procedures to be able to boil down all this information to make informed decisions off of it.
Yeah, and you know, what are the key actions you would recommend that a compensation professional take to get more confidence? Because look, most organizations work pretty hard. They benchmark, maybe using robust survey data. They try to have, I think about 2/3 of organizations have at least some sort of pay architecture. So organizations are working to pay fairly, but maybe that's not translating through. What are your recommendations for how organizations can inspire confidence in the pay structure that they have?
Well, the first thing is, what really drives trust in compensation is clear communication and transparency on the process. And that can be more difficult than what it sounds, because with transparency and with open communication about pay ranges causes a lot of training and development that we have to have for managers in communicating effectively, and also in informing our people about the process of fair pay. So that's one thing. So that to be able to communicate effectively, you need to have your processes dialed in behind the scenes. You have to have a robust process of looking at pay information that is relative to your organization, and a systematic approach that is easy to explain and understand.
Let me share with you a little bit about what we're doing at Payfederate, if I share my screen here, to maybe address some of these issues. Because, from our perspective, one of the first things we want to do is start with the best structure you can have. And you talked about communication. And one of the challenges with communication is the data. So I'm showing here our range manager. And what you could see is the organization's pay ranges. This is a job grade structure. You might also have a job-based structure where every job has its own range, or you may group some of the jobs into grade ranges and take a look. So you could see here the ranges, you could see the employees within the range, you could actually see the jobs that make up the ranges. So this visualizes all of this, and it's useful for two things. One is you can actually see where you have some challenges. So we could see we have this outlier here that's well beyond the range, so far out of the range that it was probably a mistake. And that's actually driving down the average salary for all employees in that range. So you see the blue dots here are the employee averages within the range. Well, say we want to look at all of the people that are below the minimum. So now we can kind of isolate it here and see that we've got a number of employees below the range. And of course, you want to fix that. We can actually very quickly go to this screen and select all of the employees and see if we want to move them to some level within the range and what the total cost is. So I always say the best way to inspire confidence with a range is, of course, to have really solid ranges to begin with. And you could also do things like look at pay compression. Have you hired people in the last 6 months that are tending to get paid higher in the range other than our outlier? So you have a lot of ways to quickly visualize some of the challenges. And of course, you can actually download these images and use them in your communications with executives and with managers. So this is really key, is that you can visualize why people are at where they're in the range. You can describe your philosophy. And then the other thing we want to do is be able to communicate to employees a little bit more directly. So we actually have this very rich employee total reward statement where you can go through, you can describe to an employee where they're at, show them out where they're in the range, describe if you have long-term incentives like stock, have a rich benefits program. You can actually share the employee what their history has been, which is really key in inflation, because you could say, hey, look, we gave bigger raises than inflation for a number of years. So we had a year where it was below inflation. But overall, what we're tracking to is the cost of labor in a market, not necessarily a given year's cost of living. And then one of the things I really like is you can actually add your own FAQs, because you can train a lot of people in these formal training events. But there's nothing better than when an employee is worried about their pay and they go to this rich interactive digital reward statement, that you could actually put some of those FAQs into context while they're there. So these are just some of the things we're doing to help compensation professional and HR team manage their ranges, but also visualize them so they can share them when they're communicating with leadership, when they're working with hiring managers, and ultimately making sure that the employees know the richness of their total rewards.
Yes, I think this is the key. Is there's so many situations when I work with organizations, and they may have great pay levels, they may have great benefits and so forth, but the big failure they have is really communicating, letting their people know how well off they are at the company and with the programs that they have. So I'm glad to see that digital comp statement that you have there.
Well, great. Hey, thanks to Sam for your insights on inspiring confidence with compensation. If you're interested, join us for part 2 of our 3-part series, where Sam and I will discuss how to do more with less in compensation. Thanks.